Hi everybody, this is Dr. Estes. I want to talk to you a little bit about identifying and evaluating useful online technologies for elementary education. When I began preparing for this presentation, the search was on. It took me hours to find what I needed for this presentation. It's like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes, looking for websites for technologies that are online. So what can you do? There are 4 strategies for locating web sources that we use all the time. One, we can go to a known page. We can click on a relevant link that we find on an existing page we're on. We might receive targeted marketing information and ads from vendors about technologies that match our profile because they're seeking out educators. We might even use a search engine to locate a variety of pages on a topic, and that may yield millions of results. So when we do use a search engine, let's say we don't know exactly what it is that we're looking for. What we want to try to do is narrow that down because we often get irrelevant, insufficient, inaccurate information. We find websites that give us viruses or threats, and websites that require an account or membership that sort of stop our search altogether because we can't get in without some additional steps. So basically, to try to avoid all of that, one thing that we can do is use an advanced Google search to narrow down what it is we're looking for. What are the key words that you do know? I know you may not know everything in a search, but what is it you do know? And then putting quotes around those will make the search engine look for that exact phrase. Let's say that you were looking for needs assessment apps. You may want to put quotes around that to get an exact phrase, or any one of those 3 words may be useful to you. In that case, you could put the word "or" between the words. If you knew that you did not want high school results or college results to come up, you might put a minus sign before those words as well in your search string. And if you have numbers, put 2 dots between them so that the search engine understands that these are separate numbers, and adding unit measures can help with that. There are many other things that you see here on the slide that can help. You can narrow your search, and these are often options, so you don't have to know up front. You can just make choices that will help you out, such as what language, what region are you looking at? Is there a particular domain like jmu.edu, all pages in that domain? You can look for terms that appear in the page. It could be anywhere in the page, just in the title, in the text, in the link, or linking to the page. So you really have a lot of control over where to find those keywords that you're looking for. You can hide explicit results if you want to do that. You can find out the usage rights. There are multiple different options for looking up the usage rights in an advanced Google search. So let's talk about technology in education. Who's using it? How are they using it? Why would we be looking for it anyway? Turns out there are lots of sources that point to really good reasons why we would be doing this. For example, teachers use technologies in their classrooms for instruction, but also just in the classroom environment for planning, for preparation, and also to fulfill professional responsibilities. The ASCD rubric here for effective teacher technology use might be helpful to you as you look to becoming a teacher and understanding what should I know how to do or be doing with technology in order to be using it effectively as a teacher. K-5 students are using technologies for all of the things here. They're completing tasks, developing thinking skills, solving problems, making decisions, conducting activities related to research, using technologies to assist in communication. They're demonstrating ethics and responsibility when using technologies. These come directly from standards of learning related to different subject matters that specified the use of technology for K through 5 students. So we want to begin with this idea of what do our students need to be able to do before selecting a technology to do something. There are many needs, there are many expectations in K-12. How do we frame these? One would be standards. Another would be a framework such as what you see here, the 21st century skills framework. In the orange area, it has to do with learning and innovation skills such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. These 21st century skills span all subjects. They're important to all students at all levels, and they can be integrated into any class. So on the right, you see a profile of a Virginia graduate from the VDOE website. They consider the same things, those critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, but also explicitly mention citizenship. So we want to think of apps that help us help our learners do these sorts of things. Another way to frame this to make it more manageable is to look at the 21st century skills and associate technologies with each of them. That's what this website does. If you were to go on that red banner to the web address, you would see an interactive website that has 21st century skills, including those that we've talked about mostly so far. And you can click on, for example, collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking. Each one of those will yield a list of apps that support that particular 21st century skill. Another thing that is important to consider is using research-based approaches when choosing EdTech apps and rubrics. This article comes from ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, and on the web address at the bottom of this screen, there are several topics that I wanted to share with you so that you can go and dig further on your own. Number one, they talk about tools for evaluating educational apps, such as rubrics, or existing research on what works when using educational apps. There's a checklist to make sure that the apps that you're looking at are inclusive and equitable. And there's also certifications that indicate a certain level of rigor and privacy with apps, so you can look for that. The article talks about tools to help with pilot testing educational apps. If you decide to try one out and create a pilot test, how would you go about that? It provides a framework to evaluate whether particular apps meet teacher and student needs, and of course your needs may be unique. And also a tool to help educators provide strategies for parents and caregivers who are ultimately connected to the learning experience and needing to be aware of how you're using technology and how they can support the use of technology for their child's learning. So the question is, what kinds of technologies then address common needs? Well, the reality is that there are way too many for me to list here, but following, I will show you a few samples that you might want to explore further. We do want to find technologies that support the needs that have already been identified and framed out and that sort of thing. If you're looking for apps that relate to things such as developing learners to communicate, develop thinking skills, conduct research activities, and be creative, Book Creator is a tool that will help with that. It's something that I will attempt to show you here so that you get a brief overview of how it works. So I created a book using Book Creator by simply adding text, recording audio, putting a shape around my audio, and I did that by clicking that plus in the top right. You can see I can import files and media, use the camera, the pen, text. I can record in order to populate this book with media, with multimedia for my learners. And then off screen is an arrow that I'll use to advance through my book so you can see that I have multiple pages here that I could fill and create my own original book. The learners can enter in a separate way and they can create their own books as well. It's wonderful for what you see here, interactive stories, digital portfolios, research journals, and so forth. Gizmos is another site where you can where learners can solve problems and make decisions. In the visual here on the screen in that dark blue area is a picture of a circuit that is closed and the light bulbs have lit up. So basically the screen is blank and the learner clicks in different areas to build the circuit, add a battery, add the lights, add the switch, and then turn it on. It's a very interactive little lesson about how to build circuits that comes from Gizmo, and you may want to take a look at that site as well. Some of these are free, some of them are not. but there are lesson materials and specific identified learning objectives associated with this. The VEX virtual robot. Here I've included two links at the bottom. On the left is a link to code the robot, and on the right is a link to test your robot. The beauty of this, you don't have to purchase a robot. You don't have to have a robot at your house if you're working virtually online. You can simply do the coding electronically, and then you can test online what happens when you start up the robot. So again, I'll try to show you an example of this in just a second. So here we are inside the VEX VR virtual robot. You can see on the left, there's visual coding that has been done that the students can do and that you can do. And on the right, I have a little visual showing what that code is making that virtual robot do, and kind of how it's navigating the space. So a very exciting way to engage learners in these with these tasks in a virtual environment. So the topic of engaged and enlightened citizenship was mentioned early on. Let's Go Luna from PBS has videos and games about Luna and her diverse friends traveling to different cultures and just learning to appreciate and value differences in people and differences in culture and geography and that sort of thing. So there are lots of resources related to citizenship, digital citizenship, other kinds of citizenship relating to being a global citizen. Another question, how are online technologies evaluated? Let's take a look at that. One place that you can go are online repositories. In this example, the repository is called Go Open Virginia. It's filled with open educational resources contributed by educators for educators to use, and you can use them freely. On the screen here, you'll see information that you can select to narrow your search by subject, education level, and so forth. You can even type in what you're looking for if you know what you're looking for. I have a screen grab on the right of Algebra Explorations pre-K through grade 7. It has a rating of 4 out of 5 stars, which is helpful. A description where I can learn more about it and actually access it. I can see the details, like what subject is this, what material type, even when was it added. This was added in 2011, so as I evaluate this resource, just looking at the screen without going into it, I might think, it's kind of old, it's a little dated, I wonder if it still works right. I wonder, what was used to create it and is that still working? By the way, Flash is something used to create a lot of things like this, and Flash is going away at the end of December, so keep that in mind. On the left of that screen grab is the licensing information that needs to go with it. Also extremely helpful if I decide I do want to use this resource. Merlot is an online repository that's been around for a very long time. It's been developed into a really robust archive of materials that can be used freely and donated freely by individuals, much like the last one we saw. This one is very in-depth. It involves a formal peer review process. On this screen, I have filtered by education, pre-K, and grade school. And even on this screen, there are more filters I could apply to get even more specific over there on the left. Along the page here, you see the paper project, for example. It's got peer review rating. It's also got a user rating, people out in the field, anybody who's just tried it out, what do they think? And also the very basic description and other details, dates, and so forth. The fourth one to the right, National Library of Virtual something, I can see right away that this is older, but it does have a newer update date in 2020 actually, so making that a little more desirable. The nice thing about Merlot is that it also comes with pedagogical information, how this is effectively used in education, so that you're not left hanging and wondering, should I use this, or am I using it correctly, or in a way that's meaningful? There's already some advice about that from the authors. Common Sense Education is another site that offers ratings and reviews, like you see here in the screen grab on the right. I can search and filter by grade and by subject over on the left. I can also, once an artifact is pulled up, I can see how it was rated by the star rating. But also those star ratings have different meanings, as you can see on the screen here. So instead of just one, the rating relates to some aspect of that artifact. And then I can see the grade level, any price associated with it, which is another reason we may or may not decide to use a particular technology. Common Sense Education is known for offering these evaluation tools, and in addition to what you see here, they offer other ways to evaluate. For example, you can post on their website and simply talk about a technology that has been used, giving it a good or bad rating and explaining why. Just because a tool is found on this website, do not think it's good game for you to use. In fact, there are some really bad ratings and questions about why is this even out here for students. So you'll definitely want to look at the reviews before making a decision to use something from a review site like this one. You might decide to use rubrics, and if so, you'll definitely want to create meaningful criteria. There are some existing rubrics to help with technology evaluation, such as under letter A, EEE Evaluation of Educational Applications. That whole rubric is available at the link that's at the bottom of the screen. Under letter B is a rubric for e-learning tool evaluation. It says it was designed for higher ed, but as I look at it, I think it could probably be used by anyone. As a heads up, it's about 4 pages long. It's very detailed with main headers, subheaders, a lot of criteria and detail. So if that's what you're looking for and you need a reference or a starting point, or you want to use that rubric as it is, you're welcome to do that. Under letter C, there are 2 links to technology evaluation rubrics that I found on the iRubrics site. There are tens of thousands of rubrics on the iRubrics site that is linked there, where you can just search the gallery for what you want, no matter what it is. I found 2 in a quick search of technology evaluation, and they show criteria in sort of matrix format, rating scales and so forth, so that you can get a sense of what people are thinking when they're creating their own rubrics. On the iRubrics site, you can download the rubrics and use them. For many of them, you can edit them. For some of them, you have access to use them online, just embed or link to them in your work. So a nice flexible site with tens of thousands of resources in there for you. And then you may want to use comparison charts instead of rubrics. And in this case, you also need meaningful criteria about what you're looking for. But generally, the driving question will not be what are the features within this technology, but instead the question would be, what are the features across technologies? For example, should I use Canvas or Google Classroom? We often find ourselves not just asking about one tool, but really wanting to compare which one is better than the other, and that's where comparison charts come in. You can see a bit of this chart here, but at the link below will be the full page chart, so you get a really good idea of the different categories used in this kind of comparison chart. You'll also notice that under each technology along the top is just a check in the box for the criteria, indicating that yes, that tool does it, or no, it does not. All right, I also recommend professional networking. You can do this through technology conferences for educators in K-12. For example, every year we hold a conference called the Brainstorm Conference. In 2020, it had to be moved online and it was free. You can go to this link to see all of the pre-recorded presentations from professional educators around Virginia and beyond, and many other states. A very exciting and interesting way to see what are educators doing right now with technology in their classroom, and they're presenting on it because it really works well for them. The VISTI conference will be held in December. You can visit the website to register. They offer free organizational membership, not registration necessarily. I don't know what the registration will be, but you can join VISTI for free and get all kinds of updates and invites and information about technology and education. The ISTE conference is the International Society for Technology and Education. They are having a conference this year, also in December. You can visit this website to register for it. Normally, it's very high-powered, lots of synergy, lots of apps, and many, many educators. I would say the same for all of these conferences, but they go from smallest to largest in the order you see on the slide here. In summary, my recommendation is to first determine best practice and learner needs and let those really drive your search. When you're searching, go directly to websites and repositories that you know about, such as those mentioned in this presentation. If you don't think you'll find what you need there, you can do an advanced Google search rather than just random searching to really narrow down and get what it is you're looking for. In a repository, you can also filter by level and subject and so forth and understand reviews and ratings to see how these are evaluated by people who've already used them. You can determine the rigor and privacy of vendor products by looking for certifications from that ISTE website that was shared earlier. You can use existing checklists also shared to determine whether or not that app is inclusive or equitable. And you can use or create your own rubrics or comparison charts to evaluate tools in a way that is customized for you and what your needs are and what you want the learners to be able to do. And then finally, I recommend networking and learning from others, whether that be through conferences or contacting your ITRTs in the public schools, looking for technology experts in other places and so forth. You have many different options for both identifying and evaluating really strong online technologies for educational purposes in the elementary classroom, I think. My name is Dr. Michelle Estes, just as a reminder, and here's my email address. I am a professor in educational technology in Memorial Hall. My office is in 3245C. Fall and spring semester of the 2021 year, I'll be teaching online primarily, but feel free to stop by at any other time. I'm in the Learning Technology and Leadership Education Department on the 3rd floor of Memorial Hall at JMU.